Hey guys, Mikey Moore here, lead singer of the Responding and worship pastor at Crossroads Community Church. Thank you so much for tuning in to another Responding Resourcing video tutorial. I can't wait to get right into it. So today we're going to be talking about how to do volunteer reviews with your team. Now I know this can be a little bit daunting as reviews kind of seem a little corporate, but let me tell you, volunteer reviews are super important to the growth and impact that your team is going to have on your congregation. And if you want to expand outside of your own church, this will impact that as well. So let's get right into that. So the first question you might be asking as we get into this video is, why do I need to know where my team is at? Well, part of that is, have you heard the phrase, knowing is half the battle? Well, that's true in this scenario as well. Knowing where your team is at in their skill, in their home life, and in their personal spiritual life is half the battle of trying to figure out how to grow your team to the next level. So you want to know where they're at so that you can know how to properly act and grow those individuals to the next level in their ministry. Another reason you need to know where your team is at is so that you can pinpoint those specific people that are going to be leaders on your team and those that will only be followers, because let's just face it, sometimes there are going to be people that will not be leaders. That's just not who they are. But you want to be able to pinpoint who those leaders might be to give responsibilities to and have them step up in new areas of growth. The only way to do that, though, is to know where they are at in their skill, home life, and in their personal spiritual life. You also have to report to a boss that is above you, and you need to be able to have a holistic picture of what your team is like to be able to accurately report as to where they are at. If you don't know where they're at, you're not going to be able to tell your boss exactly where you're going to be growing them, and that's important not only for your job, but also for your team to know holistically how is the team doing. A couple more reasons why you need to know where your team is at is you need to be able to develop a 6 months and a year-long development plan so that you know and have a roadmap as to how to guide each individual team member to the next level in their ministry. Having a game plan is important. If you don't have a game plan, you won't actually see your team grow very much in the next year, if at all. And those are just a few reasons why you need to know where your team is at. So my hope is by the end of this video that you will know how to have a jumping off point for how to have growth plans for your team. You will know how to have hard conversations with your team members in the areas they need to improve, and you'll have more of a holistic picture and a process for how to have these volunteer reviews with your team. So let's talk about how to have these processes and how to develop a review for your team members. Okay, so we're gonna start with what this review process looks like, and the first part of this is creating your own review document. So let's get into the couple different steps that it takes to complete and create this review document. Number 1, open up a new document and place the team member's name at the top of the document. Number 2, below their name, type out 3 strengths and 2 areas of improvement. As a note, it is important to call the weakness areas of improvement. Calling them specifically things like this helps the volunteer to receive feedback you are giving them in a loving way. Number 3, if you want to take this step, you will rate your team member 1 to 5 using areas that you come up with, or you can use the ones that I'm about to tell you. It's also important to note as we talk about taking these next steps and rating your team members, to emphasize to the volunteer when you go over these that the rating is based on what is perceived publicly by you and by others when they're in ministry positions. Also to note, using a scale from 1 to 5 to rate your team members in the areas of devotional, which is a rating that judges where they are at in their devotional life with the Lord, both in the Word and in prayer. Relational is how they interact with their teammates and overall how much they are integrated with the team as a whole. Missional, this is how they participate in mission outreach and if they have a heart for changing their community and their world. Reproducible, this is how much they are or not at all investing in the players around them, or finding someone younger than themselves that are less experienced and pouring into them. They might also tie into some leadership goal that you have for them that they might not be stepping into completely. Okay, number 4, brainstorm and write down easy action steps for the volunteers to grow into the 2 areas of improvement and how to move up 1 grading number in the areas you rated them in. Number 5, contact the volunteer to set up a time to meet and talk through the review. Some of the things to note about this point is 2 things that are important when setting up this meeting. 1, you need to be completely transparent about what the meeting is about, but also reassuring them that it is a good meeting and not a bad meeting. Another thing to note about point number 5 is this meeting will take more than an hour or so make sure your team member and you set a day and a time that accommodates for this. And then also, make a copy of this document that you've written up for them to have, read over, and then keep after the meeting. Okay, so after you've created this review document, which you've taken time to cultivate and mull through, you want to pray about this document as well as you're rating your team members. The next step is to set up this review meeting with your team member and then how to have the review meeting with your team member. So let's get into that right now. Okay, so this is number 6. After you've set up the meeting with your team member, you need to talk through the review process with them and how it will go during the meeting. A note about this is remember that you only be fully transparent during the whole process to build trust between you and the team member. A tip I would suggest is that you read through the whole document with them when you're sitting down with them, and then allow them to ask questions at the end, but not during the actual reading of the document. Okay, number 7, read through the whole review document word for word how you wrote it so that they can follow along and so that you don't say something that you don't actually mean. That's why it's super important to flesh out the document totally before you go into the meeting. Number 8, have the volunteer ask questions about what was said in the document, but make sure that they wait till the very end of the meeting to do this. Number 9, go over the strategies with the team member for how they can improve in the next 6 months and in the next year. And then finally, 10, you're gonna wanna pray with your team member at the end of this meeting, because after you've talked through the areas of improvement and the things that they've done really well in, it's honestly, they're not gonna remember the strengths, they're just gonna remember what they didn't do right. And you wanna continue to build trust with that team member. So praying with them and reassuring them that they're doing a good job, but we just wanna see them continue to grow is super important. So make sure you spend time at the end. Don't just leave 30 seconds, but spend at least 5 minutes, maybe 2 to 5 minutes in prayer with that team member, reassuring them that you care about them and you care about their growth. Okay, so now after you've had the meeting with your team member, there are some post-meeting things that you need to do. So here are a few of those things. Number 11, send a follow-up email with what was discussed, including a question to set up monthly times that work to meet with their section leader to go over and work on improvements. As a side note, we have a video solely dedicated to section leaders and how to establish them if you don't know what that is. Number 12, reflect on how that went and make any tweaks to the process that you feel would make the experience better for the team. Okay, so let's recap. First of all, why do we need a review process? 1, it gives you a way to strategically create documents that will grow your team in 6 to 12 months. And then secondly, it builds a culture of trust between you and them, and also builds a culture that welcomes feedback and has a growth mindset. And then what is the review process? This is creating the review document, setting up the time with your team member to go over the document, and then after you've had your meeting, sending a follow-up email with a time to set up with their section leader to go through these different things that you've set for them to grow in their area of ministry. So I hope by watching this video, you have learned how to create a review document and how to have a good review process with your team members, because it can seem daunting at first to do this, but I'm telling you, after you do this, you'll see dividends in the first 6 to 12 months. Thank you so much for watching another Responding Resourcing Worship tutorial. We have so many other videos, including the section leader one that I just mentioned in this video as well, on our YouTube channel. So make sure you hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell so that you know exactly when we're posting another video. And until then, have a wonderful rest of your day.